Welcome back to Rainbow History class. Know your icons, Antonius and Hadrian. Sex in ancient Rome wasn't always without love. Emperor Hadrian, who ruled the Roman Empire from 117 to 138 CE, became so intoxicated by a boy named Antonius that he had him turned into a god. Hadrian was said to be unhappily married and disinterested in other women, but when he met Bithynian, the Bithynian peasant boy, Antonius, he immediately fell in love. Antonius had the kind of angelic beauty that would capture the sensibilities of writers and artists for centuries, but Hadrian believed him wise and intelligent as well. Antonius was just 13 when Hadrian took him as his lover. Antonius accompanied Hadrian on his travels, making their way from Athens to Alexandria. Just before Antonius' 20th birthday, as he and Hadrian were sailing down the Nile, Antonius fell overboard and drowned. How this happened remains a mystery, and a suspicious one at that. There's no documentation from the time that describes the death of him as an accident. Speculation covers off everything from murder to suicide and sacrifice. Hadrian was so devastated by the death of his beloved that he had him deified. Emperors could become gods, but it was highly unusual for a boy of unremarkable origins like Antonius to be given this status. Hadrian went further and announced that a city would be built in his honor. He also founded a cult to be devoted to Antonius, which was followed by people all across the empire. The cult of Antonius dissolved as Christianity became dominant, but in later centuries, it continued to be unofficially worshipped in art and literature, especially by those who were same-sex attracted. Yikes. Problematic romance. At this point in our timeline, we've crossed over the threshold of the Common Era, which in the Christian tradition refers to the birth of Jesus. While today Jesus is one of the most well-documented figures of all time, most scholars agree that such a person did exist. When did he walk the earth? When he did walk the earth, he was nowhere near as famous. For the next few centuries, under the Roman Empire, most Romans were Jewish or polytheists, meaning that they worshipped multiple deities as opposed to one god. Later, the Catholic Church would refer to these people as pagans. One of the most well-known pagan emperor also happens to be one of the oldest figures on record, who we can reasonably say might have been transgender. Know your icons. Elagabalus. Emperor Elagabalus, sometimes called Heliogabalus, was born in modern-day Syria under the Roman Empire. She was assigned male at birth and was given the name Antonius. Before ascending to the throne of the Roman Empire, she was a high priestess of the pagan sun god Elagabal, hence the name Elagabalus. She only lived for 18 years and reigned for just 4, but in her short life she was notorious. She defied all masculine conventions of the time, and her contemporaries wrote of her wearing makeup and wigs. Roman historian Cassius Dio describes Elagabalus announcing, "Call me not Lord, for I am a lady," as well as offering vast sums to any physician who could provide her with a vagina. She married 4 women, but only had eyes for the young enslaved chariot racer Hercules, and delighted in calling herself his mistress, wife, and queen. She was cruel and extravagant, keeping lions and tigers as pets and sending them out after dessert to terrify dinner guests. A 19th century painting titled "The Roses of Heliogabalus" depicts a moment that she allegedly rained flowers onto her guests, suffocating and crushing them to death. Her extravagance and blatant disregard for the rules of gender angered the Roman army and Senate. So, in 222 CE, she was assassinated and her body thrown into the river Tiber. After her death, the Roman Senate issued something called Damnatio Memoriae, or Condemnation of Memory, which mandated she to be excluded from all records. Despite the best efforts of the Roman establishment, she wasn't erased. In fact, she became renowned as a transgender icon of ancient Rome. So again, I know a lot of people like to argue that transgender is just some new confounded mental illness and it goes against God. But transgender people have clearly always been here and always will be here. So, to the people who disagree, clearly wrong, obviously, and we have more examples. And to the people who are afraid of coming out, are worried about being out, you've always been here, you've always mattered, and they can't erase you or your history. Back in the 3rd century CE, when Elagabalus reigned, Christianity was still emerging. Early Christians were heavily persecuted under the Roman Empire for their one-godded ways. However, things would change at the beginning of the next century, when Emperor Constantine allegedly saw a cross in the sky before the Battle of the Milvian Bridge in 312 CE. Constantine claimed this vision was a divine symbol that helped his army win the battle, and so became the first Roman Empire to convert to Christianity. Some historians argue that Constantine's conversion was for political reasons, and his vision merely a convenient cover story. But either way, this moment was a turning point for the church and kicked off the centuries of suffering for LGBTQ plus people. We will move through this bit fairly swiftly, but it's a lot to take in, so you might want to brace yourself. When Constantine converted, he legalized the practice of Christianity and supported its spread. By the time the Emperor Theodosius began his reign in 379 CE, the Roman Catholic Church was so established that the emperor made it the only recognized religion under the Roman Empire. Now, under the steadfastly Christian Theodosius, it was the pagans and Jews who fled persecution. As part of his crusade, Theodosius would develop a code which historians believed was kind of a wish list of laws that would govern his idea of a Catholic state. One of those laws decreed that men should not marry in the manner of a woman. This had nothing to do with the interpretation of the Christian scriptures and more to do with stamping out the practices associated with paganism. It was in 534 CE under the Byzantine Empire, also known as the Eastern Roman Empire, that Emperor Justinian the First used Christian scripture to justify the prohibition of sexuality. The world was going through a period of environmental instability at the time, and a series of earthquakes, famines, and plagues that had people spooked. To maintain control, he needed a scapegoat. Remember the story of Sodom and Gomorrah? Using an interpretation of this story, he decreed that just as God had destroyed the town of Sodom, so too had he sent these natural disasters as punishment for same-sex relations. Therefore, to stop the disasters, this behavior would be decreed a sin, punishable by death. Nice. Using homosexuality as a scapegoat for environmental bad luck really caught on. Homosexuality would be blamed for all manner of disasters over the next few thousand years. The fall of the Western Roman Empire in 476 CE is generally considered to be the end of classical antiquity. We begin this chapter in the world of many beliefs and many gods. New ideas proliferated and sophisticated societal structures formed. Relationships were about wealth and politics, while sex was a pleasure to be enjoyed, regardless of where it was found. It seems like a series of unhappy accidents that led to the point where same-sex relations were blamed for natural disasters, declared sins, and punished by death. The persecution of same-sex relations had nothing to do with moral, ethics, or faith, and everything to do with power. And that power was really about to take hold in the form of organized religion. So that's the end of chapter 1. We will start chapter 2 and continue this journey next time. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you later. Be sure to drink some water and do something to take care of yourself today. See you next time. Bye.